So today I'm going to be presenting about the writing process. This is my literacy concept presentation. This is not a digital tool for teachers. This is being taught to a secondary classroom with high school students. And so this is more like a composition classroom, probably juniors or seniors, but this can be done in freshman or sophomore depending on the curriculum of the school. And so first of all, what we want to go over today is picking a topic for your essay. And the most important thing about picking your topic are three very key components. It's liking your topic, it's something that you care about, and it's something you know about. So liking your topic, this may seem to go without saying, but this isn't always the case. Somebody tries to pick something about monkeys when they really don't care about monkeys just because they think they have a lot to write about it. There's a lot of information on it and they think that that'll work out just fine, but if it's something they're not interested in, they're just gonna go through and pick random quotes they want and throw it in there, and that's not what you wanna do. Something that you like is something that interests you. So if you're interested in video games, if you're interested in books, if you're interested in politics, any of those things that you're actually interested in that you pay attention to on a daily basis, that's something that you want to pick for your essay. And it all depends on the prompt as well. If the prompt limits you, you'll do your best to find something that interests you. But if it's a more broad question, usually in composition classes, it's an argument essay for something that's your choice. And then something that you care about, number two, something that you care about is something that you're willing to do research about. So not only are you interested in it, but you're actually willing to go and do additional research. So if I'm interested in baseball, I love going to the games, but I couldn't care less about the batting averages or any of the other statistics about the players unless it's somebody that I'm really interested in, and my brother was really interested in baseball, so he would tell me about that, but that's not something I'm really interested to go do research about. I just like watching the games. So in that case, it's one thing that you have to be willing to do research about, find out different little nooks and crannies about each different thing. And the third thing is something you know about, something that you're educated about, and that helps with your credibility. This isn't always necessary, but it helps a lot. So if you are, not only are you willing to find out the batting averages for that baseball team or that baseball player, you already know about it, you're already up to date with it. And so if you're doing something on gun control when it comes to politics, sometimes people go into that, they know they care about it, they're emotional about it, but they don't yet know the statistics, but they're willing to go do that and find the information. That's great. If you already know the stuff about it, like if you already know that you're pro guns or pro against or you're pro the Second Amendment, then you're already educated about that. That really helps with your credibility because it's something that you have a foundation in. But like I said, if you don't, but you still really care about it, there is a way to get a foundation beforehand just by doing the research. All right, so the next part I want to talk about is beginning to write your essay. Once you've picked your topic, this is the part that's really hard for some people. In fact, for most people. So picking a topic can be hard if you're not really interested in anything that you can want to write about, that you're assigned to write about. But in this case, once you do pick one, it's really hard to get started because you don't know where to start in a lot of cases. So some people prefer to write their introduction first, and some people prefer to write their body paragraphs first. Because sometimes for me, I have to have my introduction written out with everything structured in order to continue, even if that changes along the way. Just for me, I need it structured ahead of time. And other people though, they sometimes like to write out their body paragraphs with like a rough structure in mind, and then they go back and fix their introduction to fit that, and that's totally fine, whatever works for you. The one thing that you do want to have, however, is a working thesis in mind. So you want to have your main ideas, and also your sub-main ideas in your mind. The sub-main ideas typically tend to be your body paragraphs, but this is with the 5-paragraph essay. You have one main idea per body paragraph, and there are 5 paragraphs total. That's the 5-paragraph essay. As you go through school and through college, the 5-paragraph essay is not going to be common. And so when I'm going to give you an example of a thesis statement, it's going to be the 5-paragraph essay, and then I will explain how that can move on to other and better things. So you want to have a working thesis in mind even if you do the body first, because if you're doing the body first, you want to have a rough structure in mind that you're going to go off of, because if you don't, you're just going to sit there and write and ramble. Which, if you do that and somehow it comes out of it and you figure out what you want to do, great, but in most cases you want to have a rough idea. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the introduction, so that we're going paragraph by paragraph in terms of how we're going to write the essay. And so the introduction, like I said before, it can be either written first or later, but either way, these are the key components you're going to want. You're going to want your hook, you're going to want to introduce your topic, you're going to have your thesis, and then in some cases you're going to actually have a closing sentence. In the junior colleges and in the high schools, I was always taught to have a closing sentence after my thesis. Your thesis is the springboard for the rest of your essay, but they also wanted you to close the paragraph and lead into your first body paragraph. At Fresno State, I have always been told to do your thesis last and then move on to your next body paragraph. So either way, whatever your professor or instructor prefers is what's going to kind of fly there. It just also depends on your topic and what makes sense. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the hook. What will interest the reader? And so a lot of times I have a hard time figuring out what in the world is going to interest my reader when I'm writing about my topic. Especially if it's something about politics that can be very boring to other people, even if you care very much about that particular issue. In this case, think about what will interest you. That's the most important thing, because when I was writing my first essay in my freshman English class at junior college, I was writing about this article we had to read, and the person was talking about computers basically taking over the world. And so I was trying to figure out how in the world I either have a really dramatic hook in mind, or I have a really simple, kind of boring one. And so I just went with the dramatic one, and I said an apocalyptic nightmare is about to be unleashed, and went through this whole thing. And sometimes you have to go that dramatic to get your reader interested, because otherwise it's going to be really boring. And that's okay. You can be dramatic and bombastic like that with your hook. It's when you start getting into the more serious and the more meaty part of your discussion that you want to stay more professional, and you want to stay more academic. So next you want to introduce your topic. So you'll have your hook, you'll have whatever interests your student or your reader. And in that case, so if you have articles that you talked about, or if you have the gun control issue, you'll give, you could say an apocalyptic nightmare is about to be unleashed, and then you talk about guns are being taken away from people, or guns are taking over the world kind of thing. And so you want to now introduce your topic and make clear, very clear, what you are talking about and what your purpose is for that. Next is your thesis, and this gives your main argument for the essay as well as the main ideas supporting that. And so I'm going to give you a sample thesis statement. This is a very cut and dry, basic thing I'm going to give you. It has to do with food. And the reason why I'm doing it this basic is not to insult anyone's intelligence. It's just to get the basics down and to make sure you understand that first. Because if you don't understand that, and that doesn't make you stupid at all. I didn't understand most of it until college. And so if you don't understand that way now you'll understand with the basics, and that way once we start making the sentences look better, you'll have a better understanding, a better foundation, so that you can make those sentences sound better and more clear in your mind. Because when you're trying to make sentences sound clear, but your purpose isn't clear, that ruins it. So the sample thesis statement I'm going to come up with is Little Caesars sucks. And this is suck is kind of a strong word here, so this is high schoolers, I'm sure they can handle that. But in this case, Little Caesars sucks. So that's just your main argument. You're arguing that Little Caesars is bad. I don't think Little Caesars is bad. Actually, I'm just using this as an example. But let's just pretend for a moment that Little Caesars was bad. So what are the 3 reasons? I'm going to come up with 3 reasons. This is going to be the 5-paragraph essay once again that I'm going off of, and then I will explain how we can move on from that. So you're going to have your main argument, which is Little Caesars sucks, Little Caesars is bad, whatever you want to put it, and then 3 main ideas, 1 for each body paragraph. So the first one I'm going to say is the pepperoni is moldy. Say the management does not pay attention to that, and the pepperoni gets moldy, so therefore people either don't eat it or they get sick. So that's really bad. And so that's your first main idea, supporting the fact that Little Caesars is bad. Number 2 is that the cheese is fake. And yes, there is a such thing as fake cheese, and some people like it. I cannot have dairy, and so I have tried that. I didn't know that till a certain point, so I always had real cheese before. And when I tried fake cheese, it wasn't bad at all, but you know, everyone has different tastes, and it wasn't my favorite, and some people have told me they flat think it's disgusting. So if they have only fake cheese, that could be a huge problem. So that's going to be your second main idea that supports your argument, saying that Little Caesars is bad, because they're not giving a variety of things for the customer to choose from. Number 3, the crust tastes like cardboard. This is something that you always make fun of when a pizza tastes bad. It tastes like cardboard, the crust does anyways, and so we're going to put that in there. And so those are your 3 main ideas that support your support your thesis. And so in your body paragraphs, you're going to have 1 body paragraph on the pepperoni is moldy. You're going to have another paragraph on the fake cheese, and a 3rd paragraph on the crust tasting like cardboard. And in each of those paragraphs, you will talk about that and go into more depth about it. You will have your closing statement. If you end with your thesis statement, that's totally fine, but if you don't, you will now give a closing statement into the next paragraph. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the body paragraphs, and this is actually not quite as thorough as the introduction. The introduction has like 3 different parts or 4 different parts, whereas this, on the other hand, has some very more cut and dry parts of your essay. However, it does require the most work. And so in this case, you're going to want to introduce your body paragraph with your topic sentence. And so in this case, if your topic sentence is going to be that the pepperoni is moldy, you're going to want to say the first reason why Little Caesars sucks is because the pepperoni is moldy. Straight up like that. As you start to make your essays more sophisticated and whatnot, you're going to make that sound a little bit better, but at this point we're just going to do that to make it clear. But at the same time, even though you want it to sound beautiful, it's going to need to be very clear, just very straight up. This is what the body paragraph is about. And so in this case, you're going to say that the first reason is pepperoni is moldy, and then you will describe why the pepperoni is moldy. Or why, no, sorry, why, what about the pepperoni being moldy, how you walked in and the management didn't even care or something like that. Just go into detail about that. And then if you integrate quotes from a source, you're going to want to start off with your topic sentence. And this is actually a stylistic choice. If you want to give your quote right away, you can do that. And then talk about your quote. So, but typically with a quote, you'll give a quote and it'll be, and if you go beyond 3 different lines, then it's going to be a block quote. Some teachers like that, some don't. And so the reason why some don't is because it can take a long time to read that quote and it can take away from your argument. So you want to keep quotes. While you want them in there, you want to only give what you need. In some cases, that means doing ellipses between certain parts, and that's ... And so you could say, this happened, ... and then this happened, and it just skipped a whole part in between of what was said in the source. But now you give your quote, and then, so you give that in like one sentence, and then now you will talk about your quote and just talk about how it relates to your subject, but you're going to take that 2 or 3 sentences to do that, maybe more depending on the essay. But in this case, when you start out, you typically do 2 to 3. Talk about how, so say somebody gives statistics on how many pizza places give moldy pepperoni. In that case, you're going to talk about that, and then you're going to relate that to your argument and say Little Caesars is bad because in all these places they have statistically measured that pepperoni is moldy, and so this is really bad. This is actually a food hazard. And so you'll go into that. And then in a body paragraph, if you want to give more quotes, you typically, after doing the 2 to 3 sentences, you will give the next quote, then do the same thing. And it's not always repetitive. That sounds repetitive at the moment, but it's going to be very structured in terms of you will give your evidence, give your support, evidence, and then support. And in many cases, when you're giving your quotes, you want to integrate it into the sentence you're using. And so in high school, in the beginning of college, I typically just put the quote in there and then gave my sentences, and the professors were okay with it. However, when I got farther along, they wanted me to say, integrate it into my sentence. So even if I had to say, for instance, this quote. So for instance, comma, put the quotes, give your quote, that's what they wanted. And so in many cases, you could say, so-and-so said, and then you put in quotes what the person said. That works out too. And so there are many different ways to do that. And we will go more into that later on. So the last thing we want to talk about is the conclusion. And so after you've done your body paragraphs, and like I said, those can vary depending on your essay, but in most cases it's going to look like what I showed you. So now for your conclusion, the main things you want to talk about are so what and now what. Now what the heck does that mean? So in many cases, some people understand that right off the bat. So what means why is your topic important? And now what means what you're going to do about it, what can be done about it. And so if you say so what, obviously you've been talking about why you're, in your thesis statement, you're going to be talking about why your topic is important, but in this case you want to come full circle and come to the point where you say, and you're not going to introduce anything new at this point, but you're not just going to repeat what was said. You're going to rephrase what was said and say, and then you're not restating your thesis in this case. Please don't do that. In restating your thesis just means rewording what you said before, but in this case you're going to bring in, this is important because like a lot of people could be getting sick, and this is not a good business for these reasons. It could cause the pizza industry to suffer because of it. Or it could cause other pizza places to raise up and for Little Caesars to never even have a chance. And so in that case, that's why it's important. And so that's good to introduce, that's good to bring into your in conclusion paragraph. And so the next thing is now what? And now what is really important because that's what can be done about it. That's a call to action. And keep that in mind, call to action. And so when you do that, that's not necessarily what you are going to do, because in many academic essays, the instructor asks you not to use I or you. But in this case, you could say that the management, the customers can complain, or they can write certain things to the management of Little Caesars to get them to make things better. To talk about, hey, the pepperoni's moldy, maybe you want to pay attention to that. Or the fake cheese, like we understand why you're using it for certain things, but I mean, maybe give a wide variety of options. And then for the pizza crust tastes like cardboard, maybe just simply pay attention to what it tastes like and the tastes of your customers, not just your taste. Maybe you like cardboard, but your customers would not. And so in this case, you simply want to talk about what's going to happen now. And so you could say that now is the time for some people, now is the time for customers to bring forth their concerns, and now is the time for the management to start paying attention to that. So you can even bring that in and just bring in, this needs to be fixed, and this is how it can be fixed. And so that's your main conclusion, and then you will end it with simply an ending paragraph that once again brings in the so what. And if this happens, Little Caesars can bloom and there can be success in whatever thing. And that sounded very basic, but that's basically what you're going to do, just in different ways. Anyways, that concludes my presentation. Thank you all for watching. It was a pleasure doing this. I hope that this helped and that in many ways you now understand the basics of writing your essay. If you have any other questions, if there is something that was not touched on in this video, which many things were not touched on, so if there's something in your essay that you are still confused about and you would like to come to me for those questions and we can just go over it, I'd be glad to help out. Yeah, so that concludes that, and I hope you all have a great day.